Well, I hope you enjoyed your study last week on evangelism, very important calling to each of us as Christians. So I hope you're touched by it, that you're moved, and that you grew, and that you'll take it very serious because it's what God has called us to. This week, it's going to be awesome. We get to look at the church. The church started in the book of Acts, and it is exciting to see how it started and what happened and how it flourished and the trials and tribulations they went through and the glories and the victories they went through, and to understand that it started in Acts 2 and it spread to you and I today. But it all started in the book of Acts. So that's what's exciting to me, is to see the beginning of this movement and how it started in its infancy. When we start talking about the church, I do want to say that the church is referred to as the bride of Christ. And sometimes we can be critical of the church, we can be critical of one another, and be critical of other churches. We may go to X church and we go to another to visit, and we look, man, that was lame, and whatever. And I just want to remind you and myself that the church is the bride of Christ. And He died for the church. And it's pure and it's spotless and it's holy and it's precious, precious to Him. And sometimes we don't see the purity and the beauty of it. We see the ugliness that man, brings to it. And I'm sure that God could look down, on the church and just kind of shake His head and say, none of them get it. But God in His love and His mercy and His grace loves the church, and we need to love it as well, and not be critical or never badmouth the church, because it is His bride and He paid a big price for that. So in the book of Acts, real quick, we're going. I want to do a little bit of a word study with you, and then we've got an exercise in another video down below that I'll kind of walk you through that exercise and tell you what that's all about. But right now I just want to look at the church. In the beginning it was called the Way. 5 times in the book of Acts, with a capital W, the church is referred to as the Way. You'll find it in chapter 9, a couple places in 19, chapter 22, and chapter 24 as well. The word's used 102 times throughout the New Testament, so it's a common word. And it referred to a way, a traveled way, a road, with emphasis on the road, but also referred to the travelers, their journey, traveling. And when you think about the church and why they may have been called the Way, some of these terms maybe go, okay, I can understand that. Metaphorically, it's used as a course of conduct, or as a manner of thinking, feeling, or deciding. But somewhere, because of one of these reasons, people started referring to the church as the Way. It was also referred to as ecclesia, which is where it literally means called out. In the New Testament's translated church. That word is used 118 times in the New Testament. 24 of those are in the book of Acts. And actually, it's a common term. It means any gathering, not just a religious assembly. So it was a normal word that was used. And how it would be is you're called out of your home to an assembly where people are going to gather and talk about whatever they're going to talk about, do whatever they're going to do. So common word, not necessarily a church word, but Christ refers to it as my church, and that gives it the understanding that this is a Christian religious gathering or organization, whatever you might want to say there. Also, just very interesting, in the book of Acts, for the very first time, people are called Christians. It's a word that's only used 3 times in the New Testament. It means literally just follower of Christ. But I love it in 11:26 in the book of Acts. They were called Christians for the first time at Antioch. And it actually states that again in chapter 26, verse 28. Just a really good little message that Paul is giving there, and the guy says, do you so quickly think you're going to convert me to be a Christian? But anyway, that's a great passage. If you flew through that when you're reading, it's a great one to go back and look at that whole chapter there in 26. It's also used in 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 16. So anyway, it means follower of Christ. That's all I want to give you right now. I'm going to let you take some time and read some stuff in Mark Moore's book. And then instead of, the nuts and bolts, we want to, in our exercise at the end of the next video, I'm going to talk about, what the church is supposed to look like, what Acts and a few other passages really teach us about what the church is supposed to look like and be. And then we get to look at the church of today and a few other things. It'll be an interesting exercise for you, I hope. But for now, that's it. Enjoy your study.